yes, you want to build your network. You want to get to know lawyers because that could help you eventually find that job. And for students, and I'm talking college students, pre-law students, I'm just going to be frank here. You have the most time you will ever have. I know it probably doesn't feel like it, but this is the most time you're ever going to have to be able to do these meetings, to be able to do this research. So you've got to take advantage of it now.
Hello and welcome to episode 456 of the Thinking LSAT podcast. I'm Ben Olson. With me is Nathan Fox. We're the co-founders of LSATdemon.com and the LSAT Demon Daily podcast. With us today, we have special guest Rachel Gezerseh. Hey, Rachel. Thanks for joining us. I know you have a very busy schedule. If you want to be LSAT famous, you can share news and ask questions on our website, thinkinglsat.com. What do we have going on with these test dates, Nathan?
Well, they just announced the registration deadlines for the upcoming tests. So our primary message here is don't register until the deadline, but we now know what the registration deadline is. So August 2024 LSAT registration is June 27th of this year.
Okay.
You don't really need to make any decisions until June 25th or 26th or so. Look at your practice test scores. If you're happy with your practice test scores, then go ahead and register. If you're not happy with your practice test scores, then don't. Next test after that is the September test. Registration deadline for that is July 23rd. So again, don't register for that in advance. Just wait until July 21st, 22nd. Look at your practice test scores. See if you're ready. That's all you need to know about that. We've got all the dates available at lsat.link/dates.
Great. We do have a quick request. If you find this podcast helpful, please consider subscribing and giving us a review or a thumbs up wherever you listen. It helps a ton and lets others find us when they look for LSAT or law school admissions podcasts. Rachel, you are a trial attorney. You specialize in catastrophic personal injury. I read that and I was like, whoa, that sounds intense. Wrongful death and products liability cases. You're also the author of the Law Career Playbook, the Guerrilla Guide to Getting a Legal Job You Actually Like. You'll be teaching at USC Law in the fall. And you previously worked at Jones Day. And even before that, you were a documentary filmmaker before going to Southwestern Law School. Is there anything else you want to add to that interesting bio?
No, but what is interesting about all of that is how much it has sort of come together in my current career, because frankly, as a plaintiff attorney now, I was a defense attorney, as you mentioned, for all those years. I never got to use those documentary storytelling skills, really. At least I didn't. I'm sure a defense attorney would disagree with me. Sure, they tell stories, different kinds of stories, but as a plaintiff attorney, that is really what you do. You tell your client's story and you really try to connect with the jury and the judge. And I get to do that now. I get to actually make documentary films for mediations. I do that in all my cases. And it's just an incredible full circle aspect of my career now that all these skills, my whole life, I get to use them now. So it's just a very exciting time.
Wait, so you make films that you then play in court for the jury?
I play, you can't do them in court because that would be prejudicial.
Okay,
but but a lot of our cases, most of our cases will have a mediation before, which is an out of court proceeding with a retired judge where they try to get the case settled. And in those proceedings, there's no rules of evidence necessarily like there are at trial. And so you can show a documentary film. And so in almost, I would say all of my cases, I interview the clients, I gather all their materials, and I put these films together. And they're hugely impactful and a major, net gain for the client. And to really, just think about like videos, it's just people connect in that way now. They connect with video. So it's incredible to me that I get to do this now and I get paid for it. This is my job. It's very exciting.
Yeah. And you also use that skill to get your first job at Jones Day, right? I mean, not intentionally necessarily, but it's what led to you getting that interview.
That's right. That's what a big thing that I preach in the book. And then when I talk and when I mentor students is it really is, what is your unique value proposition? Like, what is it that's going to set you apart that you can use to help others in your career? And that's from the beginning. That was my artsy background was always going to be my unique the unique thing about me that I would use to actually be a better lawyer. So, and I always tell students, what is that thing that you love to do that you can then work into your legal career and make yourself useful with?
Yeah. I mean, and not only that, I guess it might help if you don't mind just briefly recounting that story, because I'm rereading your book. And the thing that strikes me is that you are doing all this work, right? Like up front, I think this is how you describe it. You're doing all this smart, systematic tasks to try to build your network. And in the process of doing that, you are, there's a lot of things that don't necessarily lead anywhere, but something ends up giving you this job at Jones Day. And there's no way I think you could have predicted how that would have happened, but it still is the result of all these efforts you're taking to get a job. I mean, I guess we should step back a little bit. The reason we had you come on this show is that you are in the process of writing a new version of your book. When was the original one released?
I think it was February of 2019. It was pre-pandemic for sure. About a year
Okay.
before the pandemic is when it came out. And I was just when I was transitioning from being a defense attorney, working at Jones Day, doing defense work, and then in the next year I transitioned to becoming a plaintiff attorney. So it was kind of a crazy time when it came out. But that's when it came out. So it's been a while. A lot has happened since then
Yeah.
in my
Okay.
life and in all of our lives.
Yeah.
So
And
it,
it's done very well, right?
it does extremely well, and a lot of the sales it sells on Amazon. I still actually self sell it when people reach out to me. I have books in my garage that I'll ship out, but it's very very successful on Amazon, which is actually the impetus for me doing the update. Not only because I wanted to update it for what's happened post pandemic, but Amazon actually reached out to me and asked me to do the update. So when Amazon calls, you do these things. So it's exciting, and I'm adding new chapters to the book to very specifically talk about Zoom networking, which is a hugely powerful tool that we have now, all of us, that students and new lawyers can use to your advantage to really connect with people that you wouldn't, it might be hard to do those coffee breaks. Like I think the book is talking, has coffee, I'll beat you for coffee, I'll do this. That was pre-pandemic old school networking. Now we can hop on Zoom for 15 minutes and really connect with people. So it's the new chapter is going to have really concrete ways to reach out and get those meetings online, and then how to best do them in this virtual environment and put your best self forward.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine as a lot of people are listening to this now, they're thinking, okay, law career playbook, Zoom, networking, interviewing, all this stuff. That sounds great. I guess I'll get started on that once I'm in law school or once I'm, nearing the end of my law school. But that's not your message, right? You actually think people should start even sooner than that, before they even know whether they want to go to law school?
Absolutely. I mean, part of the whole journey is self discovery. So, part of what I preach is, yes, you want to build your network, you want to get to know lawyers because that could help you eventually find that job. But part of when you get to know lawyers, you're learning about the practice of law. Most people, unless they grew up in a family with a bunch of lawyers in it, they really don't know. And a lot of students, pre law students, have no idea what it means, what it is. And so when you actually go on Zoom or in person and you meet lawyers and you hear about what they do on a daily basis, you're educating yourself about what you may want to do or may not want to do. And for students, and I'm talking college students, pre-law students, I'm just going to be frank here. You have the most time you will ever have. I know it probably doesn't feel like it, but this is the most time you're ever going to have to be able to do these meetings, to be able to do this research. So you've got to take advantage of it now and actually build those muscles, build into your schedule now these building blocks towards building your network. Because by the time you get in law school, your time is going to be so limited. And then by the time you graduate, you're studying for the bar, it's even more limited. And then you have that first job, but maybe you don't like it, but it's even more limited. And so if you have that network already organically built because of all the efforts you're putting in now, such a better, easier path for you.
So this a network takes time to build, right? It's not like you can, I need a job in the next 3 months. Okay, well, let me try to build a network and then try to get a job out of that. But so really, there's two things going on here. One, figuring out what exactly you want to do in the law, if that is even in the law. And then as you're doing it, you're also building this network, which will then make it possible for you to get that kind of job.
That's right. Twofold benefits is the way I
Yeah.
see it. And the sooner you start, people always ask me, when should I start? And I just always tell them, start today. Start today.
Hmm.
Little steps too. It's, I always think it's overwhelming for anybody at any stage. It's overwhelming if you're trying to switch jobs, if you're trying to get a job, if you're trying to figure this whole thing out. So it really is a program that in the book, of baby steps, of really building every day just a small amount of work towards this end game. Then it's not so overwhelming.
Nathan, any thoughts, questions?
Yeah, I'm curious what you're teaching at USC this fall.
Yeah, that's really exciting. So the USC also reached out to me. So I was teaching at USC before the pandemic, and that was really fun. I was teaching the LLMs, who are international students coming into USC, getting a special kind of degree, and then trying to work in the US. And I taught those students in particular about culturally what was going on in Los Angeles and how to network very specifically in our market out here in California. So that was that class. But then the pandemic made it really hard because it all went online and students didn't want to turn their cameras on, and a networking class when no one wants to turn their camera on was difficult. And so I graciously kind of stepped away from that work. Plus it was when I was transitioning to this new plaintiff role. But recently, USC reached back out to me and said, "Hey, we want to build out a new class for you in particular." And so they're starting, actually, it's an internship class where USC law students, they'll be going out into the Los Angeles market and doing these internships during the week. And then my class is all about, they'll come to class, they'll break down who they're meeting, what they're learning in the internship, and then we're going to learn how to make those connections deeper, right? How to really make those internships and externships and volunteer opportunities that they're doing during the week, how to grow relationships and long-term career prospects out of those. And so it'll be a step-by-step class about how to do it, a real workshop about how to build these relationships. So I'm super excited about it. The book is actually going to be the textbook in the class, which is another reason for this new edition coming out in September. And so actually a lot of law schools use my book as a textbook. So USC was one of the first ones, and then law schools all over the country started buying it for these kind of networking classes. And so I teach other teachers how to do this too, which is exciting. So I'm excited about the USC class. The other thing I'm going to be launching hopefully in September, is a YouTube/LinkedIn series that'll sort of take these concepts that I'm teaching in the class and put them out into the world. So little short form videos in which I'm going to be interviewing other lawyers to talk about how I do it. That's actually the name of the series, How I Do It, how lawyers in a day in the life type little chunk explain sort of what they do, which is a big part of what I teach. Is you've got to get to know what real lawyers are doing out there in the world to see if you're going to like it, and to see see what you're going to like in this vast legal landscape. So it's exciting, a lot going on right now.
Are any of those available, or is that also to come?
In the works to come. So this is all going to be happening September, October. Of course, I think I mentioned I've got a bunch of trials. This is what I always wanted, but it's a little bit crazy when you're actually have trials on the calendar that you're prepping for. It's a matter of, I'm just trying to manage my time and make it happen. But I do think September, October, the USC class is definitely happening. So I'm hoping it all launches around the same time.
Cool. We have a listener question about working in corporate law. Maybe we could go through that, and then we'll let you get back to I know you said hearings this afternoon, so we'll let you get back to that. Ben, you want to read this email from Claire?
Sure. Claire writes, I would really appreciate a breakdown of what corporate lawyers actually do. I'm pretty sure that I could get into my alma mater, Chapman's Law School, but I also wonder if I should shoot for higher. The option of going corporate is less likely at smaller schools. Should I be interested?
That's a statement. I think she's saying
Yeah.
she's just stating a fact that it's less
Yeah.
likely that you're good. But although, wait a second. Is that true that going corporate is less likely at smaller schools?
Yeah, no, and right, and that's the whole. That was sort of the genesis of how I even got into this. Right, is that I don't know. Chapman and Southwestern are similar in that way, and so when we're talking about smaller schools, we're talking non Ivy big, top 10 schools. And the stereotype is that you can't get a big law slash corporate job coming out of these lower ranked schools, right? That's what everyone tells you. That's the message you're even told even when you get to those schools. The reality is if that's something you really want, which was at the time my story, you got to hustle and you got to do it. You got to get there and make these connections. And there are ways to get your foot in the door in corporate law at any law school that you go to, but you got to be very deliberate about your strategies and how you do that. But so for Claire, I think so. When I do my series, this is why I love it. It's like, what do these lawyers actually do? That's why I want to do this series, because a day in the life of a corporate lawyer. Let's go look at what these people do on a, for real, the good and the bad, the boring and the fun, right? Corporate is such a vast term. What does that even mean? I mean, you could have a corporate litigator, like what I used to do, where you defend big corporations. You could have a corporate deal maker. They don't see a courtroom at all, right? They're just on the phone. They're making deals. They're reviewing contracts. It's very, very vast. And there's all different types of people out there, even in Los Angeles alone, who do that work. So that's why I want to bring that kind of video series out into the world so that students just like Claire can see that and hopefully connect with it or not.
So one thing about Claire's question is it's a little vague, right? What do corporate lawyers actually do? I think you talk about this in your book, right? People tend to start out with vague questions when they reach out to people or when they do these informational interviews, but those questions don't usually get answered, right? Because they're too open-ended.
Right. And going through the process and what I teach in the book and really help students develop is just this idea of being the sponge, like really going out there, connecting with lawyers, listening to them, gleaning the information from them, and educating yourself so that you can ask more precise, more insightful questions, which is going to be helpful as you progress and network. I mean, the more precise and insightful that you are in these conversations, frankly, the more memorable you're going to be. And it's a process, it takes time. And it really is about discovery and learning, which is why the research and the networking and the Zoom interviews and everything else, as soon as you can do it, you should just start doing it. It's so awkward and weird at first. No one is good at this stuff. And it really is just a matter of practice and honing and being consistent with it.
While Chapman is on our agenda, I want to. I'm sharing my screen here. Can you guys see that? I just want to take a peek here at the financing that happens at Chapman. This is a school that's ranked 100 plus by U.S. News, so it's definitely a regional school. It's probably the kind of school that you should only go to if you intend to practice law in Southern California. Um, the nominal tuition at Chapman is $61,000 a year for again for a very regional school. And Claire's email makes me a little nervous because Claire's talking about, I think I could get in. And I want Claire to really pay attention to the price that she's going to pay. If you look at the 509 report for Chapman, you're going to see that uh, there's a couple things here that I want to point out. So first is in this grants and scholarships table, this is on the American Bar Association 509 report. This is mandated consumer protection documentation that's out on the internet for anybody to look at for any ABA accredited school. Of 433 students at Chapman, there are 10% of those, 42% of them, who are there on a more than full tuition scholarship. So these are people who are not only not paying the $61,000, they're paying $0. They're actually getting paid to go to Chapman. There's another 26% of the school that is getting somewhere between half and full tuition scholarship. So they're not paying 61,000, they're paying 30,000 or less to go to Chapman. So Claire, I just want you to be conscious of that. When you apply to Chapman, if you get in, I want you to know that there are many people in the school who are paying nothing at all or actually getting paid or who are paying dramatically less than that ticket price. The other thing I want to point out is that this is a school that gives lots of questionable scholarships. This conditional scholarships matrix over here on the right-hand side, they have consistently for the past few years pulled the rug out from under 40% or so of the people who get scholarships. So last year they gave 110 scholarships and they reduced or eliminated 49 of those scholarships. That's actually 45% or something like that. Of the scholarships that they give are going to be taken away if you don't perform well enough on your grades. So be careful about paying full price at a school like this because other people are not. Also, be really careful about the if they do make you a scholarship offer, just be aware that if you don't perform really well grade wise, they will probably take that scholarship away from you. And this is why, Claire, we really encourage people to apply broadly. We just want to make sure that you're getting a good deal on whatever law school you decide to go to. We don't want you to be thinking about just getting in. We want you to be thinking about the price that you're going to pay. All right, I'll get off of that soapbox.
It's a good one, and it's a real concern. You don't want to be saddled with debt. That's extra suffering that can actually hurt. Some people they stay in jobs because of they're saddled with that debt but they're miserable. That is not a life that I or anyone wants for you. So just the good things to think about.
Yeah.
Yeah. And especially about what you were saying, Nathan, applying broadly. I mean, one of the takeaways here is not just if you were to go to Chapman, you should make sure you're getting a very good scholarship, if not a stipend. Given the fact that might be taken away, really you should probably be looking at other schools. Because even if you got a stipend there, you might lose it, and then you're now paying $61,000, which is just crazy.
Well, Rachel is always going to say that it's not impossible to go work in big law or corporate law from a school like Chapman. And she's evidence that it's not. She went to Southwestern. It's a similarly ranked law school. And she ended up practicing in big law. So it is a thing that can happen. But their big law placement at a school like Chapman is going to be very, very thin. I mean, they've got to be placing something like 5% of their graduates into big law. So you can always be the exception to that, Claire. Maybe if big law really is the right thing for you, then maybe you will be one of those people who go out and get yourself that big law job out of a school like Chapman. But you're much more, in my estimation, you're much more likely to get that job if you were there on a scholarship in the first place. The people who have the best LSAT, the best GPA, the best credentials tend to get the best grades. Big law is really interested in the grades that you get in law school. And so if that's going to be your route, like Chapman to big law, you're going to need to get Rachel's book, network your way into that job to begin with, and also probably kill it while you're in law school to give yourself the very best chances at that big law job that you want. And if you can do it without debt, then you can free yourself up to do whatever you want to do during your career instead of having $300,000 of debt that you're going to have to slave away to try to someday pay off.
Rachel, before we let you go, I did want to hear, you said, if people ask, when should I start? You said today. Other than getting your book, what else would you recommend? Or is that your main first step?
I don't know. I mean, definitely get the book just because the way that I wrote it is it's a worksheet that you can use daily to do these steps, right? But yeah. I think that to me the most fun, because I find this stuff to be so fun. I'm actually helping my son right now. He's trying to get into colleges, so I'm having him employ my strategies.
He's listening to you, I guess. It sounds like he's listening to you.
Sometimes, yeah. but no,
that's great. Well, it's like. Yeah, I try to get my kids to listen to me. They're like, no, Dad, I don't care what you have to say, even though you think about this all the time and every day, but we're going to do what we want to do.
Right.
Anyway,
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
But I'm having fun with him. And, and I know that this is what I say to do, go on LinkedIn and part of the new updates to the book, we'll talk about the updates to LinkedIn, because LinkedIn is just incredible tool. Obviously, it's an outward facing tool. It's it's your public resume. It's a way to let the world know who you are and what you've accomplished. But the inward, internal research capabilities in that tool I've always thought they were great. They've just become so, so good and so specific. And so if you want to start today, just start researching, finding lawyers, finding people doing what you want to do on LinkedIn, and just start a list. You don't have to reach out to them today. Just pull down what you can pull from LinkedIn, figure out what their connections are, and really start to build that list. And then from there, using the book, you can really start to plan your reach out efforts and getting those Zoom meetings online. But I say have some fun. Go take a big spin in LinkedIn. It's really gotten great in there.
Thanks so much, Rachel. What's the best way for people to find you if they want to learn more?
Yeah, sure. So I would say visit my LinkedIn page, which is just my name, Rachel Gezerseh. My Instagram, also I think it's Rachel Tessa Esquire, actually is my Instagram. I have a lot of good content on there. I started doing a bunch of reels and little videos, day in the life stuff, that's actually the stuff I'm going to be doing in the series. So people can check that out. And please follow me. I'll follow you. And then you can always email me at work, actually. So that's rgezerseh@panish.law.
Gezerseh, Gezerseh, just so people have
Yes, I know the court reporters hate me. So there you go.
it.
So yes, please reach out, and I'm always happy to help people. So yeah, I'm looking forward to talking to people about this and seeing what you think about the new book.
Great. Thanks again for coming on. Yeah.
Thanks for coming on, Rachel.
This next email is from Lucy. The subject is LG maintenance. I'll read it. Hi, team. After you become proficient in logic games with 100% sections, or any of the other sections at all, really, how often do you suggest practicing / switching it up between the sections to keep up the maintenance of the skill? Thank you. Best, Lucy.
Yeah, I'll take a crack at it.
Okay, sure.
The thing I always say is that you should just make sure that you're doing at least one timed section of every section type per week. So do a full test per week. You can chop it up into sections.
Mm-hmm.
If I was perfect on the games, I would still at least do one timed section of games every week. Now, that might not be enough if I'm studying, every day for the LSAT, which I should be. If I'm doing a little bit every day, then I probably would want to do a little bit more than that throughout the week. But I would think at a bare minimum, all LSAT students should be doing one timed section of games, one timed section of reading comp, one timed section of LR. As soon as the June test has passed and the games are gone, I'll probably change that advice to at least one section of RC and at least two timed sections of LR. Because that's the that's the ratio of the test. So I just can't imagine preparing for a test and not doing at least one test per week timed.
Sure.
Then everything else should just be drilling. And if you're really that good at the games, then it shouldn't be a big deal, right? You hit drill, the demon gives you a game, you knock out that game. If you're perfect on the games, then that's going to take you 6, 7, 8 minutes.
Yeah.
You score perfect on it? Cool. Keep drilling.
Keeps your skills up to date. And if you're doing Demon's Choice, it's going to know that you're better at games, and it's therefore going to give you more of logical reasoning and reading comp, depending on how well or poorly you're doing in those sections. But it's never going to not give you games, but it does weigh how good you are at these things and gives you more of what you're not good at.
In LSAT Demon, here I'm logged on looking at my dashboard. If you just click drill, it'll just give you something. It'll give you, here, we're looking at a reading comprehension passage.
And that's using Demon's Choice, by the way. When you hit that drill button.
Yep. Mm-hmm. When you hit the drill button, that's drilling Demon's Choice. Another way to get there is if you went to the drilling tab, by default, the Demon's Choice box is checked.
Mm-hmm.
So you just hit drill, and here we go. Now it gave me a game.
Mm-hmm.
So the demon is going to keep track of what you're better at, and it's going to give you a little bit less of that. It's also going to give you harder of that when you do it. The stuff you're good at, it's going to give you harder and harder, and probably fewer and fewer.
Exactly.
When the stuff you're bad at, if you miss a bunch of questions, it's going to give you easier questions to try to get you back on track. And it's also going to give you more of that type of question because you clearly need the practice. So again, that's demon's choice drilling. If you want to call it artificial intelligence, I suppose you can. It's just an algorithm that watches your performance and it tries to give you the stuff that you need to work on. It's like a automated personal trainer for LSAT.
Yeah, it's like guardrails for bowling.
Ah, yeah. The bumpers.
Like, let's get you back focused on what you need to be focused on.
Get it back on the lane. All right.
Yeah. Cool.
All right.
This next one's from Anonymous. The subject is LSAT GPA gap year ?
Hello, Ben and Nathan. I was hoping to please get your advice regarding my standing and a potential gap year. I'm an incoming senior with a 3.87 GPA, which I calculated to be around a 3.89 LSAC GPA. I've taken 2 practice tests so far, scored 154, then 158. Great starting place. Wow. I mean, you're killing it. I haven't studied much so far, but I plan to spend the summer studying full-time and taking the August LSAT. My goal is to attend a Tier 1 school, which, Ben, what is a Tier 1 school?
It really depends on who you're talking to. It could be top 3, it could be top 10, it could be top 14, it could be top 50.
Yeah, we don't... Tiers are really pretty useless. I don't know what you're talking about when you say Tier 1. I'm going to assume you mean top 50. Maybe you mean top 14. I don't really know. Anyway, but recently, says Anonymous, I have started to doubt myself. Thus, I've been juggling the idea of taking a gap year. I would apply to law school with a 3.92 LSAC GPA, assuming A's in my senior year, and I would have more flexibility to retake the LSAT if August doesn't go well. Additionally, I would have the year of work experience to add to my resume and personal statements. LSAT aside, I was wondering your opinion on taking a gap year to improve my resume and hopefully GPA, or do you think this wouldn't make a significant difference in my application for a Tier 1 school, which again, we don't know what you mean by Tier 1. Let's assume top 14.
Doesn't matter, right? I mean, at the end of the day, like a gap year is good for reasons you identify and also reasons that you don't identify. A gap year is good for your GPA, which is a clear winner because it's a number that they care a lot about. The other number that they care a lot about is your LSAT score. So those are your 2 most important numbers. And a gap year is going to make it possible for you to increase both of them, even if you only take the August LSAT, knowing that you can take it again in September, October, February. That freedom is going to take the tension away and make it even more likely that you score better in August. Not that you should even take it in August. I mean, that's another issue in it of itself. But the point is that a gap year will help you with your 2 most important factors, LSAT and GPA. It's also going to help you with your resume, although that's not that important. Schools do value work experience. And there's an idea here too that you haven't mentioned. And it's the thing that everyone leaves off. But you take a gap year to get experience to make sure that you really want to go to law school. Because it gives you more time to make the right decision as opposed to rushing into a bad decision that you will then have to spend years trying to rectify.
Yeah, there's no reason to rush into this. And there's absolutely every reason to just take your time. If you try, your existing plan of I'm going to take the August LSAT, I'm going to study full time over the summer, take the LSAT and apply right away, you're putting the most possible pressure on that August test.
Yeah, it's one or done. That's how you're making it out to be. Yeah.
That's how people crash and burn. That's how people score 10 points lower on their official test than they do on their practice tests. Yeah. Because on their practice tests, they're not stressed out. On the official test, if they're planning on only taking it one time, then they get super, super stressed. Well, why would you why would you engineer your own demise in that way? Why wouldn't you just, like, by all means, take the August test, but have that be your first of many attempts? Take the August test knowing that you've got 4 more potential backups. Take the August test feeling like it's just another practice test.
Plan on taking the August test with the option to not take it.
Right. If you're not ready by the time the deadline rolls around to sign up for the August LSAT, which is going to be, early July, if you
early
when that
wait, I think
or
it's
late June.
Yeah.
Late June.
Yeah.
Okay. So the late June deadline for the August test, if your scores aren't ready by that late June deadline, then just don't register. Why would you rush into this? They offer the test 9 times a year. And so you could just decide, hey, I'm really not where I thought I would be or not where I want to be. I don't want to take this test with so much pressure on my head. Why don't I just wait? And yeah, you can just wait, and you can have the luxury of having many backup tests if necessary. Get yourself some work experience, work on your resume. Sure, fine. As Ben said, figure out whether law is really something that you actually want to do. Huge reason to slow down this process a little bit. And then if by tier 1, what you mean is top 14, because I think that's pretty common that people they consider tier 1, top 14. The rest of the top 50 is tier 2. The top 100 is tier 3. Everything else is tier 4. I think that's maybe what US News used to do when they ranked law schools by tiers. If you mean tier 1 equals top 14, well, I'm sharing my screen again, Ben, if you want to take a peek at this. This is the 509 report for Cornell. Cornell is exactly ranked 14th. Okay, so this is a good, poster child for if you want to get into the T14, here's what your scores are going to look like.
Yeah.
Look what the median GPA is.
Yeah, it's a 3.9. You can be above it if you wait. You can be below it if you don't. And that can make all the difference in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. Look what the median LSAT is.
Yeah, it's a 172.
Which is pretty damn high.
That's high, but Anonymous starting out with a 154 and a 158 is the candidate who should expect to get into the 170s.
I agree that Anonymous is the kind of candidate who should expect to get into the 170s. I don't think that you should settle, Anonymous. I would say absolutely do not settle for anything less than a score in the 170s.
Yeah.
But your first attempt, you might score 168. You might score 169. You might score 170. Your practice tests might have some 173s and 4s and 5s and 8s in there. You might realize, oh wow, I'm capable of an elite LSAT score as documented by my practice test scores. But then when you take the test with only one bite at the apple in August, that might come back a few points lower than what you were hoping for.
Yeah.
And it might be a 171. It might be 1 point lower than the median score to get into the top 14 or get into the bottom of the top 14, which Cornell is. And if you had 5 bites at it, you've got 4 more chances to score a couple points higher, to get that score on record that you're capable of because of your practice test scores. And now all of a sudden you're applying with above the median on both LSAT and GPA instead of applying with below the median on both LSAT and GPA. We could go on all day about how bad of an idea it would be for you to rush into the August LSAT and apply right away, or how good of an idea it is for you to take a gap year. But Ben and I are both 10 out of 10 here that you should definitely just slow down a tiny bit. I mean, time flies. Slow down a tiny bit. It will make your application so much better. Anything else, Ben, for Anonymous?
No, I think we're pretty clear on that one.
Don't do it just to improve your resume.
No.
But improving your GPA is a good reason to do it. And giving yourself the best chance at your very best LSAT is another really amazing reason to just take another year. It's so easy. Just slow down a little bit.
Thanks for writing in. Let us know what happens and what you decide. We're on to Word of the Week. This one is from me. I was reading the New York Times daily email, And it's talking about Trump's current case in New York. The sentence says, pundits have lamented the quotidian nature of the case. Even though it's a documents case, the trial has thrummed with high-octane moments like his face-off with Daniels. So those two words, yeah, they were new to me. I could kind of figure out what they meant from the context, but quotidian and thrummed.
So I think I can get quotidian here from context.
Mm-hmm.
What do pundits want? Pundits want excitement.
Yeah.
So if they are lamenting the quotidian nature of the case, that probably means that it's been boring.
It's been boring.
Does quotidian mean boring?
It means daily, of a sort of commonplace nature. I haven't looked up the word since I looked it up, but something along those lines. And as the next sentence goes on to say, even though it's a documents case, right?
Which also sounds boring.
Yes, it's just dealing with really run-of-the-mill stuff.
Okay. Thrummed. The trial has thrummed with high-octane moments like his face-off with Daniels. I think thrummed is onomatopoeia.
Like it sounds like what it's trying to say.
Uh-huh.
I think you're right. I mean, it sounds like drummed, right? Or to drum.
Yeah, or just that word thrummed. It like makes a noise, thrummed.
Yeah.
So it's like like an engine.
Yeah.
Oh, and by the way, high octane moments.
Mm-hmm.
So thrummed with high octane moments.
Mm-hmm.
So it sounds like it's kind of chugging along, or it's got this energy to it. So even though pundits have lamented the boring everyday nature of the case, even though it's a documents case,
mm-hmm.
whoever was writing this says, oh, well, that's actually not true. The trial has thrummed with high octane moments like his face off with Daniels. Let me see. I'm going to look up thrummed. It's funny because, you spend your whole life reading words like this all the time. Thrummed is not like an unfamiliar word to me, but I have definitely never looked it up before.
Mm-hmm.
Thrummed, the verb, it is to make a continuous rhythmic humming sound. The boat's huge engines thrummed in his ears.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah.
Hey, Eric can cut this if he doesn't like it. I want to make a basketball analogy to talk about anonymous above.
Okay.
You watch any NBA this year, Ben?
No.
Do you know who Luka Doncic is?
No.
So Luka Doncic is one of the best players in the NBA. He's this like 6'9" guard, and he's like a big bodied guard. He's just this big doughy guy. And he's not like particularly fast. He's a great shooter, but Doncic plays the game of basketball, especially when he has the ball in his hands. He plays the game like he's on it's like time works differently for Luka.
So he's not moving quickly. He's just playing his own game.
He moves slowly.
Yeah.
He moves slowly on purpose. And it's so crazy. It's like people say Luka's boring to watch, and he does cry about fouls all the time, which is really pretty annoying. But Luka, he does this thing more often than anyone else I've ever seen. And I'm not like a basketball knower or anything. I don't really know what I'm talking about that much.
Sure.
But
yeah,
if you watch Luka for 5 minutes, I guarantee you will see him dribble the ball up, and somehow he'll get past one defender. And then Luka does not rush to the basket. He does this move where he basically pins the defender behind him. It's the craziest shit you'll ever see, because he's like kind of dribbling the ball low in front of him, and his defender is now behind him, and the defender can't get around Luka's like big ass.
Yeah.
And so I guess Anonymous made me think of this, because it's like, Anonymous, you've got the potential here to be like an MVP type of candidate. You've got really great numbers. If you can get yourself up to a 3.92 LSAT GPA, then, you're above the median at top 14 schools. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And your LSAT with a 154 or a 158, basically cold diagnostic, you could easily get yourself into the 170s. I mean, might take hard work, but conceptually, it's not going to be a heavy lift.
Mm-hmm.
And you got a choice here. You could rush to the basket and throw up one shitty attempt like Russell Westbrook. Or you could be Luka and you could just kind of slow it down here.
Mm-hmm.
And you could like control the game by just kind of controlling your pace. Everybody else can do whatever the fuck they want.
Yeah.
Other applicants can do what they want. Schools can do what they want. And you can just go into like Luka mode where you just sort of it's like you're seeing in the Matrix or something. And just decide, well, okay, the August test is there for me, but I don't need to rush into that. That's an option for me. Sure, I could take it to the rack right now, but I could also just kind of slow down. I got the defender pinned behind me all of a sudden. I can just take a few more dribbles. I can find an open guy. I can kick it out to, whatever. I'll stop with the basketball analogy when I don't really know what I'm talking about. But there is something to it where it's like, you can just change the game by deciding that you're going to be in control of the timeline instead of letting everything else control your timeline. And, Luka has made like an MVP career out of doing this. Take it for what it's worth.
Cool. Yeah.
I think Eric will at least get a laugh. So.
Yeah. No, it's good. Be LSAT famous. Please ask questions or share news with us on our website, thinkinglsat.com, or on socials at LSAT Demon. If you have questions about the LSAT Demon, email help@lsatdemon.com. You can also check out our other podcast, LSAT Demon Daily. That was episode 456 of the Thinking LSAT podcast. Thanks all y'all for listening. Nice knowing you. Don't pay for law school.